Today we're going to be making Downeast Maine baked beans. My great-grandfather grew up in Washington County, which is right up on the New Brunswick border. And I, as a kid, I always vacationed up there. So, just like much in New England, this was a traditional food. And in that area, baked beans, this would have been the recipe they would have used. My adaptation of it.
Before we begin, a quick word on soaking beans. I soak all of our beans using the method found in the book Back to Butter, the purpose of which is to remove the phytic acid from the beans, making them easier to digest. For this, you need any activator such as whey or plain kombucha, but I usually use lemons because that's what I have on hand. I have the juice of 1 lemon for 2 pounds of beans, and then I'm going to add warm water to double the volume. I have a 4-quart container, 2 pounds of beans, and I'm going to fill the water just all the way to the top. Give them a quick stir, cover them, and let them sit for 12 hours. If you let them sit any longer, you are going to need to replace the soaking water, but I find 12 hours is perfectly fine. Rinse them with cold water, and they're ready to use.
Good morning, Matt from Oak and Ash Farm, and today I'm going to make my Maine Downeast baked beans. So, type of beans we have here, that's really important. These are called Jacob's cattle beans. It's an heirloom variety, and they're used as a bacon bean. And they just have these beautiful spots on them. So Lindsay soaked these last night, so they're ready to go for me now. And I think she has some footage she's going to add about soaking the beans. So if you got a bean pot, great. These things actually work really good, and they hold the moisture in. It's a 2-pound recipe, and usually I just split a pound into this bean pot, and I got a small Dutch oven. The only drawback to the Dutch oven is you just gotta add a lot more water and check it periodically. Whereas this, I might add water like once during the whole process. So first thing I do is take an onion. Like I said, there's a 2-pound recipe. I just split it in half. So I put a small onion in each pot. Just a yellow or white onion's fine. So all we do is we just get the paper coming off here. And this is just something I do. I make like a blooming onion out of it. So once I get the paper off, I try to leave as much of the base as I can on it. And that helps hold it together in the bottom of this pot. So I just kind of get a little bit of the root off there. All the paper's gone. And you're just cutting through like 2/3 to 3/4 through the onion. And now you got like this blooming onion and flowered onion thing. And I just stick it in the bottom of the pot, and that just melts away over the course of the baking time. So next thing we do, we got our Jacob's cattle beans, and we're just going to divvy these up into the pots. That's the only thing with these big bean pots, they're kind of narrow tops, so you got to funnel them in there a little bit, but just use your hands. So next thing is, I'm supposed to have salt pork, but I went to the grocery store today, and apparently with COVID, we're all out of salt pork. It's not a high demand item, so just tried to get some nice fatty bacon that wasn't super smoky, and because I'm not looking for a ton of smoke in this. So usually what I do with the salt pork is I put it rind side up, which is the skin, and then I'll cut it, same kind of like the onion. I cut it cross-hatch through that, and that just allows, once that connective tissue's gone, it'll break apart as it cooks. So just in the spirit of that, I guess I'll go and just kind of score the bacon, not all the way through. And then I'll just divvy these up. Half in one pot, half in the other. So next up, we got a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Again, this is for the whole 2-pound recipe, so I'll just scoop half of this out of here, other half in this pot. And then we need some molasses, so it can be bootstrap or just regular dark molasses. So this calls for a half a cup total. So I'm gonna put a quarter cup in each. And one trick I like to do is just, molasses is super sticky. I love it, but like half of it stays in your measuring cup. So usually what I end up doing is I'll just drizzle this in here. And at the end, when we gotta add water, I'll wash the cup out so I get all that molasses sweetness and kind of getting a true quarter cup into each of these. There's my molasses. I'll just drizzle this right over the top of that bacon. You don't mix anything together. It just kind of just all sits there, and as these bubble, we'll talk about it a little more, but as they bubble, they'll mix all of our spices in. So next up, we got dry mustard. That's the one difference with these baked beans. They call for a lot of dry mustard. So it's 2 teaspoons, so 1 per pot. Then we got some black pepper, half a teaspoon. I just fresh ground this. So we'll put a quarter in there, quarter in there. Just put a little salt for good measure. Just a little bit of sea salt right over the top. I like to put some cumin in there. Probably only like 1/8 of a teaspoon, just a little bit. Just gives it a good flavor. Smoked paprika. Right over the top. And then I love this stuff. Tabasco, smoked chipotle, and just a little smokiness. It's not much heat. It's like a sneaky little smokiness. I just put a couple glugs of that in the top. And then we got our Oak and Ash Farm unlabeled maple syrup here, because it wouldn't be baked beans without maple syrup. Just maybe a tablespoon of that, just by eye. And then the big thing is, so we use dried seaweed. So this is kelp. If you're talking traditional Maine, it would have been dulse, which is another type of dry seaweed. But this just good saltiness, and then actually it cuts down on the gases. So baked beans get a bad rap for making people gassy, and I don't know, they don't bother me, but I always make them with kelp in here, and Lindsay's read up and I've read up that it has something to do with reducing the gassiness of it. But this just disintegrates too, and then you get like these little ribbons of seaweed in there, and it just adds good brininess to it. So that was kind of a small piece. I think I'm gonna just go good measure. I'll just put a little more in. So now we got everybody in the pot. Next thing that's key is I already got some water I pre-boiled in the electric kettle, and we're gonna just pour this in, and we're basically just bringing these beans till they're topped off. And what this is gonna do is, when we throw them in the oven's set at 375. So we go for 375 for 2 hours, and then 350 for another like 3 or 4 hours, depending. Usually what I'll do then is like, this pot's gonna finish quicker because it holds the moisture better. So this is gonna probably finish like, this will be 3 or 4 hours. This might take 5 because it's a lot more moisture escaping. But usually I'll just go and taste the beans to see how toothy they are, and I like to leave them a little toothy. That's what's nice. This is a nice hearty, meaty bean, so it's not like mush like refried beans. So we just top this up all the way, and now these are ready. Okay, so we got everybody in the pot here, and the big thing is, like I said earlier, we just toss it in. We got that onion on the bottom, all diced up, that flour and onion, and then everything's just on top. Our bacon, not salt pork today, is sitting on top. And you'd be surprised, because over the course of this stuff's just gonna break up and kind of disintegrate into just these great baked beans. So we'll check it out later. These are gonna go in the oven 375 for 2 hours, and then 350 for like 4 hours is usually what it takes. these are in. I'll probably check these in like an hour and just check the water level. You could use chicken stock too. Just preheat the chicken stock almost to a boil and before you add it so you don't bring the temp of the beans down.
They've been there for like 5 hours, and the oven, I just let the oven shut itself off. We're eating dinner. Time to come out. You could probably let them go longer. I mean, I've cooked them for a couple hours in the oven and throw them on the back of the wood stove before. And they just come out fine. So this is the only time that I mix them is at the end here. So you get all that kind of like burnt bits up, not burnt, but brown bits up top. And I'll just kind of mix them right in. And the bacon still, it didn't melt away the way the salt pork does, but I'm sure it'll be delicious anyway, so. This covers a little, you gotta tip it off a little bit. It's tough with the glove to get it off. But that's probably why it retains moisture much better. Yeah, these are just, they're just better looking beans than in the Dutch oven. So, something to be said about a bean pot. Obviously it was for a purpose and it's legit. But here's a scoop of these here. Looks good. Have to have Lindsay make some biscuits for the beans.